Are you traveling this summer? I'm going to share with you 6 games that you can play in the car on these long road trips to help pass the time and stimulate language in your kiddos. Don't go away. Hey, welcome back to Lingo Roo, where language comes to life. My name's Jen, and I am a speech pathologist, and I have created this channel as an effort to come alongside of you, the moms, the dads, the ones who are on the front lines with your kiddos, the ones who are in your homes, in your cars, wherever you find yourself. And I'm trying to teach you guys how you can stimulate language, how you can get your kiddo talking within the context of activities that you're already doing, right? Whether it's going to the store or doing bath time or getting dressed in the morning, whatever it is, wherever you find yourself, there are things you can be doing to help get your child talking. So today it is summer and we're going to be talking about travel, right? We're going to be talking about those long road trips. We just got back from vacation and that's kind of what got me thinking about this. Summer is a great time, even though your older kiddos may not be in school. Summer is a great time. Traveling is a great time, a great way that you can stimulate language outside of your normal everyday routines, right? But to find and create new routines that you can target some of these language skills. Again, you're stuck in the car for 8 hours, right? Might as well make the most of it. I remember when I was a kid, we had the auto bingo, right? And you had the little things that the little slidey colored things that you would look out the windows and try to find the mailbox or the flag or whatever it was, and you would cover them up and try to do bingo. And like most parents, I think my parents' goal was to just keep us quiet, right? Keep us engaged in something other than fighting and other than, the imaginary tape line in the middle of the back seat that your sibling inevitably crossed over 18 million times and he's on my side, and you know the drill. You guys have been there. So what could we do? I know modern day, it's devices typically, right? I remember in our house when we bought those portable DVD players, and you strap them to the back, to the head part of the seat in front of you. And it became something that we did on trips initially. And then I think my husband and I kind of caved, to be really honest. We started out, okay, we're only going to use this on long drives. We're only going to use these videos as a way to fill the 8-hour drive. And we're not going to use it just around town. And very quickly, we caved. Very quickly, we started, okay, yes, fine, you can watch it on the way to the grocery store. Or nowadays, modern day, my kids have devices. They have iPads. And again, what was initially something meant for long trips, we've kind of caved and allowed them, are we driving to school 20 minutes? Yeah, you can take your iPad. Or no, you don't need your device. You don't need a device in a car for 15 minutes. And so again, that's kind of a discussion for another day, right? But if we thought about these road trips as isolated, captive audience time, how could we stimulate language and get our kiddos talking to pass the time rather than just putting them in front of a screen for that much longer? But again, as you've heard me say probably, hopefully over and over, if you've watched a lot of our videos, I'm a realist, right? So do I expect you to be on and be talking the entire 8 hours or 6 hours or whatever it is? No, of course not. But what if we broke it up? What if we did a language game and then played something on the iPad, and then we did another language game, and then we stop for lunch, and then we do another language game, and then we watch a movie and hopefully drift off into a short nap, or however it is you want to structure your trip, but just to be proactive. And even if you do 2 games on this next trip, that's 2 more than you were doing before, right? So every little bit, again, this is baby steps, every little bit helps. And the more you can stimulate language in your child, the better off he or she is going to be. Okay, so let's dive into it. I told you at the beginning of this, I've got 6 games. Some of these are marketed. Some of these are kind of adaptations to those games that we've marketed or that someone has marketed. So the first one I want to show you is this game. It's called HEDBANZ. And if you don't have this game, it is fabulous. I will put a link down below to show you how you can acquire it. This is one of the best language games I think I've ever seen in terms of having this, you technically don't look at the card, and you have to ask questions about your object. You have to have your partner or your kiddos describe what you have on your card, and you have to guess based on their descriptions. They could be categories, right? It's a musical instrument. I cheated. I looked at this one, but it's a musical instrument. It's something that we play. It makes music. It has strings, right? So you're describing what it looks like, what it's made out of, what its function is. And I will be honest with you, this game, even though it was one I had in the clinic, and it's one obviously I have here at my house, we played this actually just in an imaginary sense. When my kids were little, we'd be at the pediatrician's office, for example, and I'd say, all right, what do I have? And I would hold my hand up like this, and this was my imaginary card, and my kids just thought it was hysterical, and they thought it was great, because they never knew, was I changing it as we went along, or was I just making this up and keeping the game going? But it was a great way, and it was something that you can play. Maybe you have an apple on your head, or you have a banana on your head. So again, in the car, where you may be restricted, you may not have the actual game, it's okay. You guys can play imaginary headbands, or you can have something on your head and make your children guess, and get them engaged in this game, and it could be really fun. Okay, the next game, hopefully you guys know this game. It's called SCATTEGORIES. In SCATTEGORIES, you have a list of different categories. So it may be food, transportation, items of clothing, whatever it is. And then you roll the dice, and whatever the die lands on, it's a letter, and you have to come up with each of those categories, something in each of those categories that starts with that letter. Okay, so let's say you roll a B, and your category is fruit. So you think, okay, banana, and then items of clothing, it might be a blouse, something like that. So you have to use the letter that you roll in all of these different categories. Now, as you can imagine, this is a higher level game, higher level language skills to be able to come up with this. But what if you, in your car, on your road trip, what if you kind of do an adaptation of this game? What if you talk about categories and see, okay, we're going to talk about food. Let's go around. Who can name food items? And you name all the foods you can name. You think about transportation or things we ride in, and how can you name as many items of or vehicles or items of transportation? What about animals, right? And then you can even break it down into subcategories. So you start with animals, and then you say, okay, let's break this down. Let's talk about the zoo. What animals do we find in the zoo? Let's break it down to the farm. Tell me all the farm animals you can think of, right? So you have categories, but then you have categories within categories. When you have food, then you have fruits, you have vegetables, you have different types of meat, right? So you have all of these little categories within these bigger categories, and this game could go on forever. Okay, another game that you can do is just one that my mom used to always do with us. It's I spy with my little eye. And she would even do I spy with my one little eye, and make it even that much more engaging and fun for us as kids. And you can talk about things in the car, right, for your younger kiddos, and things that are immediate. This gets a little trickier if you're moving down the highway and I spy with my one little eye, and you name something that you've passed, like a water tower or something that's no longer in your view of sight. But if you start with things in your car, this is another way, again, to just engage your children and think about all the language. You're talking about the vocabulary labels, but then you're talking about descriptions, the color, the size, the shape, the number, what it's made of, what its function is, or what it does, right? So there are all these ways. There are so many ways to describe objects within your car, all within the context of this game. Okay, the fourth game I want to tell you about, I don't know if you have seen this game. It's called In a Pickle, and it is a wonderful game. Again, I would encourage you to check the comments below to see how you could acquire it to have at home. But again, let's talk about how we could adapt this to our car, to our road trip, right? So in a pickle, you have cards, and the job of the cards, you have like 4 cards laid out, and you have 5 in your hand. And of the things that are on the table, the cards that are shown, you have to decide if something's bigger than that or something is smaller than the object, okay? So for example, if it's a jar, a pickle would fit inside a jar. So you would put that card underneath jar. So you have jar, pickle, well then what would fit inside of pickle? Maybe a pea, right? What would fit inside a pea? Maybe a bead, right? And so you play this game on a table with the cards in the actual game, in the pickle game. But how could we adapt this to our road trip? What if you played a game and you called it, what's bigger than, right? And I start and I say, what's bigger than a spoon? And the next person has to say a spatula, right? What's bigger than a spatula? A golf club. What's bigger than a golf club? And you go on up and you see how many you can get and how many new things you can create that's bigger than the object that the first person listed. You could also do it for what's smaller than, right? And work the other way down. You don't need cards. You don't need anything to manipulate. You can do it just around and take turns with you, your husband or partner and your kiddos and let them come up with these ideas of what's bigger than something and what's smaller than something and making these comparisons. What's harder than? What's softer than? Right? So there are all of these ways that we can compare and contrast objects in the context of this game and building one on the next, on the next, on the next. And again, just what a fun way to pass the time as you're driving down the road. Another great game for comparisons is the game called Apples to Apples. I don't know if you've seen this game. I actually have it here. Again, you have several cards in your hand and whoever's turn it is to be the judge gets to go first and they have a card. This card says awkward. Right? So of your cards, you have to decide which of my cards do I think is the most awkward. These say beats, fuzz, car horns, opera, right? So there are all these options of things that could be awkward. And I have to come up with one of them that I think is the most awkward. And then whoever's turn it was to be the judge gets to decide out of all of our options whose they think is the most awkward. Sometimes it's legit. Sometimes it's really something that's awkward. Sometimes it can be really funny, right? And you can have some fun with this. But again, adapting this to a road trip, what if you did this version of Apples to Apples where maybe one of you, whoever's it, gets to say slimy, right? And you get to go around the car and think of how many things can you come up with that are slimy. Slime. Snails, toothpaste, right? Canned mushrooms, whatever it is. There are so many things that fit into that category or that are described by that word. And then you go to the next word, right? Then you look at maybe hard and you think wood, bricks, a book, right? Those are things that are hard, but then also use it as an opportunity to talk about multiple meanings of words, right? Hard could mean hard, right? And maybe for your younger kiddos, you're modeling, you're tapping the overhead light or you're tapping the dashboard and, oh, I see something that's hard. What is this? And you're kind of scaffolding it or building it up so that they can guess more easily. But what if we think about hard as being difficult, right? A skateboarding trick might be hard. Right? And so for some of your older kiddos, that might be a way that they could contribute to the game and kind of take it to the next level. So again, be thinking of ways that, not teaching needs to you to think this is the way it's played, because quite honestly, I'm making this up as we go along and as we go down the road, and so are you. But ways that you can adapt this and think about all your kiddos and think about how to engage them, again, for even 15 minutes, 20 minutes, just to break it up and to stimulate language as you're on these longer road trips. Okay, the last one we want to do is, this is an oldie but a goodie. I remember doing this as a child. That I'm going on a camping trip and I'm going to take a tent, and then the next person, I'm going on a camping trip and I'm going to take a tent and a water bottle, and you build on it, working on that working memory piece, right, where you have to remember these things and hold them in your memory long enough to spit them back out and to play the game appropriately. Some of these categories might be harder than others. Camping trips, my kids have never been on a camping trip. That's shameful, I know, but that's just not something that they really understand or know. So again, what if you switch it up? What if you say, I'm going to the grocery store and I'm going to buy and you start listing items in the grocery store. I'm going to a restaurant and I'm going to order this, you know, maybe for your kiddo, if you have a child for whom language is difficult, maybe you want to make it more specific to a special interest, right? For them, maybe instead of restaurant, I'm going to McDonald's and I'm going to get these things, right? Something that they know and can come up with and be part of the game. And again, encouraging them and helping them out. Which leads me to some final thoughts. So as you're thinking about these games and you're thinking about adapting them, right, to target some of these language goals in your kiddos, some things to think about. First, you're going to want to start with the youngest kiddo, right? You're going to want to always give him the first opportunity, or give the child for whom language is difficult, right? Give that child the first shot at these games. For example, you know, when we think about our kiddos, they may have one or two ideas, right? They may have one category, or they may have one object within the category. So you're going to want to go with them and let them have some success being the first right out of the gates one to respond as you start each round, or as you're starting these games with your kiddos. Another thing you're going to want to think about is you're going to want to provide scaffolding, right? Okay, so scaffolding, what do I mean by that, right? If you think about a building where they're doing some construction and they have scaffolding along the sides, it's support, right? It's a structural support while you're working on a skill or while you're building the building. And we want to do that verbally, right? We want to give our children clues, which brings me to the next kind of final thought. So we want to help them have clues, and we want to give them as much as they need to have success, which is another point. Give them the clues and celebrate their wins, right? We don't want this to be an 8-hour trip of no, right? So give them enough clues to where they get it, so that they can be part of the win. They can be the part of the celebration that you're having for the team as a whole. Which brings me to my final thought. You know, games, I know I'm super competitive. You can ask my husband. I don't like to lose at things. But this isn't necessarily about individual wins. The win here is stimulating the language, right? So another thing that I like to do is to incorporate siblings. I have 3 kiddos, and my middle son and my youngest, my daughter, they're very good when they work together. Right? So if we're doing something like this, we may, you know, my husband may be a person and I'm a person, and they're a team. They work together and they get to collaborate and they get to talk about this. Again, it's still language stimulation, right? Even though they're coming up with an idea together, the lesson is still the same. The information that your youngest kiddo, or whichever kiddo it is that's having the difficulty, the information that they're learning and the language they're acquiring, that's the goal. That's the win, and that's the takeaway. So finally, guys, just one more thing to think about. I know I've given you these 6 ideas as we've talked about summer break and these longer road trips, but these are games you can play in the car anytime. These are games you could play on the way to the grocery store or on the way to school in the morning. So think about that and incorporate some of these things all throughout your day, not just on these summer trips. All right, so guys, I hope this has been helpful and fun. Do me a favor, would you try some of these games and maybe comment down below, comment in the comment section, and tell me a game you like to play. I'd love to get some more ideas and hear what you guys are doing on your trips or in your car to help stimulate language and help pass the time. As always, find us on Facebook. Send me a message if you have specific questions. If you haven't already, click here to subscribe to this channel. And then you're going to want to check out this video as well. And I'll see you next time here at Lingo Roo, where language comes to life.